Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk about why data analysts are set up to fail and why it's our fault. My name's Hamzah. I'm one of the co-founders of Lightdash. Lightdash is an open source business intelligence tool that sits natively on top of your DBT project. I've spent a lot of time in the world of data and before that in the world of software engineering. And I've been able to see how those two stacks and worlds have grown and how the tool set has evolved with the needs of the business and the needs of those communities. Or in the case of the data world, how they haven't evolved that way. Before we get into all that, I want to talk a little bit about how we got here as data analysts. In the last 10 years, data analysts have become way more technical. Not even the last 10 years, the last 2 years. They're not using tools like Tableau and Excel anymore. They're in their command line. They're using GitHub. They're using developer tooling that was really built for the world of software, but they're repurposing it for the world of data. And this is because the asks on the data teams are just so complex today. But most of the tooling for data teams that's built for them doesn't match up. We're still relying on spreadsheets and we're asking them to do the work of software teams. But how did we get here? Let's talk about how this came about. 10 years ago, Amazon dropped Redshift and started the data warehouse revolution. This was amazing because it was the first time that we had really cheap storage, and this led to an explosion of a plethora of different tools, sparking the data warehouse revolution and the apps being built on top of it. Everything from extraction with tools like Airbyte and Fivetran, through to transformation, and then obviously to the visualization layer, where for the first time, you were able to get insights over all of your data reliably and quickly. And what this meant was it was amazing to be a data person and to work in the data landscape. And for the businesses, they were getting more insights than ever before. And it also meant that you now had data stacks that could be managed by someone who wasn't an engineer. You didn't have to have a computer science degree to work in data. Having both the knowledge of all the business and everything the business needs, but also understanding intricately how the data is joined, how it works together, and bringing those two things together was really a superpower. And it was kind of how analytics engineering was born, right? Bringing the best of those two worlds together. Folks who really, truly understand exactly what insights they need to deliver, but also understand the schema, the shape, and how data is made, and how it's sort of formed and how it comes about in a company. And it meant that the kind of task they were asked to do was everything from being able to build and maintain their own data sets through to actually modeling the data that would then be used for things like self-service BI and all these sorts of tasks. And it really means that they're actually more like developers, and I'm going to call them data developers, than they are like business analysts. But during that whole shift, something kind of went wrong. We had all these amazing tools that when we think about them individually, they seem to make sense. But when we put it all together, it just doesn't seem to quite fit. We think we've got this Ferrari in our data engineering and our data pipeline that's really like powering how we're working. But in actual fact, it's just sort of like a lot of disjointed parts kind of stuck together. And I want to go through one really quick example of what this actually looks like if you're a data analyst. A pretty common task these days is to be able to create a new model in DBT, with the end result being that I can expose this to my end user, my business user in my BI tool. And so what does that look like? So I start writing some SQL in my text editor, but there's a bit of a problem. That's not a big deal. I'm going to head over to BigQuery, to the BigQuery console, run the SQL and kind of see what's going on. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to copy and paste it back into my other window, back into DBT. At some point, I'm also going to have to write some tests, add some documentation, and put that all into my DBT file. I'm probably going to do that cycle a bunch of times. Once that's done, I need to then push them to GitHub, actually merge those changes in somewhere so that they can be stored and kind of persisted. And then I actually need to compile my DBT project. So I have to run it somewhere. In this case, I'm going to use Airflow. And while that's happening, because it's not the fastest job, I'm going to copy and paste my code into Looker so that I can actually start building some charts or some dashboards for my end business user. But there's a problem. I find out that the chart I want isn't exactly what I need. And we start from the beginning again. And there are so many tools in this chain and so many places to go and see to make the smallest change in the data stack that it really is not using data analysts to the best of their ability. What they're really good at is understanding the business and knowing how the data the business has can help solve those needs. And that's really what they should be spending their time on, right? Like, where can I create most value for the business by creating data models or delivering insights? Everything else in the middle should just happen, but it just doesn't. And we end up with this development spaghetti that ends up taking so much time. It's normally actually the majority of the time is spent in how do I actually get the work done from A to B, go from ideation to production, rather than actually thinking about the interesting data problems and the insights that the company needs. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but now let's get on to what can we do about it. I promise that's the end of the doom and gloom bit. The answer to me is really simple. It's treating data analysts a lot more like software engineers, making them first-class citizens in terms of the tooling, the community, and the culture around the field of data analysis. We have to learn from our friends in software engineering, and it's thinking about what makes engineers so fast and efficient to begin with. What is it they've done so well in the industry of software engineering, and how can we bring those learnings to the world of data? And if you think about it, everything in the software engineer's toolkit has been optimized over the last 10 years to actually increase that impact, the efficiency, and the ability to collaborate, right? You think about Git, it's built for collaboration and for governance to let really big engineering teams work together seamlessly without stepping on each other's toes all the time. Then you have IDEs, the text editors. They're literally built to work at the speed of thought. So every single keystroke is intentional, and you can kind of get your work done as quickly as possible. And then continuous integration deployment means that you can actually make sure that your changes get into the hands of end users as quickly as possible. All these things make software engineering so fast and so impactful. And we want to bring a lot of those to the world of data. And so for me, it's about thinking about data development as a system that needs to be optimized, and less so about like a linear workflow. And so the kind of questions that folks should be thinking about when they're building data tools, whether you're a vendor in the space, or if you're someone who's setting up your data team, is how many touch points am I actually introducing? Like, how many different tools do I need to touch to be able to make a change in my data pipelines? Can my team collaborate across the data stack? Can they do it quickly? Can they do it reliably? And then maybe the most important one for me, which is how fast can I go from an idea to something actually being available in production, and then also being able to iterate it. So going beyond ad hoc and actually building a cycle of development that your team can optimize to deliver insights and deliver value to the business. For me, 2023 is the year that data development will become a first-class citizen. It's when we'll get to answer the same problems that face software developers and bring those to the world of data. The great thing here is we don't have to answer all of them. The world of software engineering has done a lot of the heavy lifting for us, and it's really just a chance for us to adopt those best practice tools and bring them to the world of data. And I think the community and the tooling will have to adopt the best practices to actually empower data teams to start doing their best work. And for me, what this looks like is there's three things that I'm really excited about over the next 12 months. The first is actually solving that end-to-end development workflow. So that data spaghetti that I showed you earlier, like that's going to be a lot more streamlined. And it's one of the problems that I think about a lot, and a lot of folks at Lightdash spend a lot of our time working on. And I think it's a really, really exciting space over the next 12 months. The other thing is immutable sources of truth, thinking about things like the semantic layer and how that's actually going to power multiple data applications working off the same source definitions for things like metrics and dimensions. It's going to be really exciting. And finally, then data development will be able to be on an equal footing as software development. And teams are going to think about resourcing data teams the same way they think about resourcing software teams. And so if I can leave you with one thing, it's this. Stop thinking about data development as such a linear process and really start to think about it as a flywheel that can be optimized and that we can bring a lot more performance to the world of data. And whether you agree or disagree with me, I'd love to hear more of your thoughts. So if you'd like to, please join the Lightdash community and come chat to me and the rest of the Lightdash team and tell us what you think. Thank you so much for listening.